Hello and welcome to this Come to Jesus Daily devotional. I trust you are well. This week we've been reflecting on the account where Jesus raises the widow of Nain's son from death, and we've been learning many things from that. And today we're considering a bit more about how we respond when God doesn't act, when he doesn't do the miracle we would want. So let's read again the account from Luke 7:11-17. Soon afterward, Jesus went to a town called Nain, and his disciples and a large crowd went along with him. As he approached the town gate, a dead person was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. And a large crowd came from the town and was with her. When the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her, and he said, "Don't cry." Then he went up and touched the bier they were carrying him on, and the bearer stood still. He said, "Young man, I say to you, get up." The dead man sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. They were all filled with awe and praised God. "A prophet has appeared among us," they said. "God has come to help his people." This news about Jesus spread throughout Judea and the surrounding country. And today we reflect on the privilege we have of being able to pray about all of our deepest problems and sufferings. However, God also gives us the ability to endure in faith when he fails to answer our prayers as we would wish. This woman in our text receives a great miracle without even praying. We see that Jesus does much of his work without our even praying for it. He knows what we need before we ask him. However, like the centurion earlier in this chapter, we have the privilege of coming to Jesus in prayer in order to ask him to heal and do many things for us. This is a wonderful privilege as children and priests of God. However, how do we handle it if we have wanted Jesus to heal someone or give some similar miracle and this hasn't happened yet? We're still waiting for him to act. How do we handle this? What do we do if Jesus has failed to touch the bier that our loss is being carried upon? Firstly, we are not promised that God will do all of our will and heal all of our pains. We're encouraged to pray about everything, including sickness, but we're not promised that God is like some kind of genie who is beholden to our commands, that he does our will and that he will do everything that we ask for. Secondly, let's see that this text what this text does teach us about Christ. It teaches us that he is compassionate and loving toward us. His failure to act as we would wish doesn't change his love toward us, his love toward you. The heart that drove this act for this poor woman still exists for us, even if he doesn't do the act. Let me say that again. The heart that drove him to do this act for this woman, as his heart went out to her, his heart is like that toward us, even if he doesn't do the act. We read something similar in the life of David. Let's look at David's response when God didn't answer his prayer as he prayed for his sick child. We read in 2 Samuel 12:16-20. David pleaded with God for the child. He fasted, spent the night lying on sackcloth and on the ground. The elders of his household stood beside him to get him up from the ground, but he refused, and he would not eat any food with them. On the 7th day, the child died. David's attendants were afraid to tell him that the child was dead, for they thought, while the child was still living, he wouldn't listen to us when we spoke to him. How can we now tell him the child is dead? He may do something desperate. David noticed that his descendants were whispering among themselves, and he realised the child was dead. "Is the child dead?" he asked. "Yes," they replied, "he is dead." Then David got up from the ground after he had washed, put on lotions, changed his clothes. He went into the house of the Lord and worshipped. Do you see how David, even though God didn't answer his prayer, he persevered in trusting in his goodness and in worshipping? Thirdly, persevere in trusting in the love and goodness of God. The world, the flesh, the devil will tempt you to slander God. We must all pass through experiences where we have to learn to worship in our pain. However, we don't have to do this in our own strength. David, I don't believe, did this in his own strength. One of the fruits of the Spirit is patience. That's what we read in Galatians 5:22-25, patience. Patience means many things, including long suffering and control, self-control in internal and external difficult circumstances. If we are disappointed with God, ask the Holy Spirit to give you the fruit of patience and perseverance so that you can trust, hope, and worship when God doesn't do what we would want him to do. So in response, we have the privilege of praying about all of our deepest problems and sufferings, but God also gives us the ability to endure in faith when he fails to answer our prayers as we would wish. Faith means that we trust God in all circumstances. We trust him in the light and the dark. Do you have circumstances that you need to persevere in praying about whilst remaining patient and trusting? Ask the Holy Spirit to fill you and help you at this time. God bless you.